As the US and NATO continue to allegedly ramp up their actions against Islamic State extremists, Kurdish fighters are facing off alone against the Islamic group, defending the town of Kobani without support from the superpowers. Turkish security forces fired tear gas and water cannons on Friday to disperse Turkish Kurds attempting to cross the border into Syria to join the left-wing Kurds' fight against the Islamic State militants. Syrian Kurd leader Saleh Muslim called for international support, saying that the Kurds were fighting on 3 fronts to protect Kobani from a genocide if the Islamic State takes the town. Meanwhile, US-led aerial campaigns have targeted Syrian oil fields, purportedly to cut off revenue sources from the Islamic State group. British lawmakers approved airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Iraq, voting 524 to 43 in favor of intervention after a 6.5-hour debate. The UK will send 6 RAF Tornado fighter jets to the region within days. Only a handful of MPs vocally opposed the mission, including Scottish Labour politician Ian Mackenzie, who was sacked as parliamentary aide after voting against the motion. Catalonia's bid for independence from Spain took a step forward as the region's president Artur Mas signed a decree calling for the separation vote at a ceremony in Barcelona on Saturday. The referendum was approved by Catalonian leaders on September 19th by a significant margin of 106 to 28 in favor. However, Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has said Madrid will block any attempt to carry on with the referendum, which is scheduled for November 9th. Catalonia is among the most prosperous regions in Spain, but reports also suggest that its population of 7.5 million people have become increasingly disenchanted with the austerity policies and royal family scandals coming from Madrid. With Brazil's presidential elections scheduled for next weekend, advisors of opposition presidential candidate Marina Silva said that Silva would foster a closer commercial relationship with the U.S. if elected. Silva advisor Mauricio Ranz was in Washington on Friday to explore possible commercial agreements with the U.S. Relations between the two governments soured after 2013 revelations that the U.S. spied on President Dilma Rousseff. Silva, who is closely trailing Rousseff in polls, has increasingly adopted right-wing positions despite her environmentalist past. Chilean President Michelle Bachelet signed a new tax reform law on Friday. The measure will combine an increase in corporate taxes while eliminating some tax exemptions. Bachelet maintains that the additional revenues will go toward decreasing the country's income disparities, as well as investments in Chile's education system and other social programs. Right-wing politicians and business leaders have criticized the law, claiming that it will create an uncertain economic climate and cripple investment.
The Honduran Institute of Social Security believes it has a way to avoid that its employees rob the institute again. This comes after it recently reported that medicines, instruments, and other articles worth over $350 million were stolen. The solution is based on reforming the model of contributors in order to raise its income. This means that people with no jobs can now pay a minimum bill and benefit from the system.
This will now allow those with low income to access Social Security.
The new law implies that the universal service that exists since 1959 will come to an end. Now contributors will have access to a number of services, depending how much they pay.
In Honduras, there are bonuses for everything. If the government uses these funds to pay for the Social Security, it would be enough to give full coverage for all the contributors. But that is a decision to support the people in general, and not only those who have the same political identification as the president.
The meeting to reveal the new law looked more like a bankers' reunion instead of one of people worried about delivering Social Security to the general population, of which more than half earns less than $1 a day. This sector will now have to spend on a health system that gives them very little in return. Gerardo Torres, teleSUR, Central America.
Mildred has lived most of her life with chronic depression, at times debilitating, yet like the tens of thousands in Mexico, she was unaware.
I I didn't know that I was ill. I didn't know I had something. I didn't know that I had depression. I lived a normal life, yet a life with stigmas, that there was nothing wrong with me, that it's just in my head, it's just psychological, and that just creates more stress and more depression.
3 years ago, she challenged stigmas and sought help. She now mentors and educates others so as to tackle widespread discrimination.
Es mayormente desconocido, porque más los estigmatizan y más.
On a whole, it is unrecognized because it is stigmatized, and those of us who suffer from a mental disorder are singled out. We are criticized, and so there is no education to let people know that we have rights just like any other person.
Para que sepan que tenemos derechos igual que cualquier otra persona.
Experts say economic uncertainty and unemployment are key factors in putting depression and suicides on the rise in Mexico. Yet compounded with gender inequality, young women are considered most at risk.
Hablamos del rol de género.
We speak about the role of gender. Women confront a gender role that is oppressive, and so for them it is much more prevalent to see characteristics of depression.
Tienen características depresivas.
They say a combined effort of education, consistent treatment, and promoting opportunities for youth can be an effective recipe in reducing this public health issue. Clayton Khan, teleSUR, Mexico City.
Navaratri, a biannual Hindu celebration in honor of the goddess Amba at the beginning of spring and autumn, commenced this week in India. Celebrations are organized over a period of 9 days, marked by prayer, ritual, fasting, music and dance among men and women. The 5-day Durga Puja festival will begin next Tuesday, commemorating the power of Hindu goddess Durga and her slaying of the demon king Mahishasur. For many followers, her actions symbolize the triumph of good over evil.
Facts that have marked the course of history. Productions designed in the English language and made for the English-speaking world. This is Documentary. Watch it on telesur.net/English. teleSUR, wherever the news, you'll be there.